above the clutter.
Hey, hold on just 1 second.
I would do anything for a woman with a gun.
Can I ask you a business question?
Depends on the question.
How do you feel about death?
Seems like a subject you would be well versed in.
And why do you say that?
Not every day does a woman in a red dress come in backless with a Beretta 70 strapped to her thigh.
Well, you know, one can never be too careful when dealing with a handsome man in a suit, especially carrying a Walthers. So what's the deal with this pocket rocket you got strapped to you anyway, Commander?
Depends on your definition of safe sex.
You know, I'm ready to hear about this 7-step argument you have. Cut this stuff. I want to hear about this 7-step process where you're not going to close me, and I'll be forced to use this trigger.
And we wouldn't want that, would we? That's Margaret Wood, Oxford, Mississippi. You got it perfectly, actually. In my opinion, I think presentations have to rise above the clutter. Every day, you and I, your consumers, encounter between 250 to 5,000 advertising impressions every single day. And if you're going in there and you don't have the enthusiasm to rise above the clutter, it's going to be very, very difficult. One of our speakers this morning brought up a situation where I think he said it was about 16, an economic buyer. This is a person who makes the decisions on your product and your service. That economic buyer sees about 28.6 people every week selling them some product or service. It's almost 30 people. We have 7 steps to a closing presentation. We have 7 steps to an opening call. We have 7 steps to a closing presentation. I'm going to detail those to you in the very, very short period of time that we have. What we want to do is we want to come back, and what we instruct our sales reps is to come back within 72 hours. Why? Because the clock is ticking. You have 28 of your competitors, enemy, covert agents coming back in there to take your money. I want to bring them back to where they were before, when I left them on what we call a customer marketing profile. This is a customer marketing profile that our sales reps utilize in internet, television, radio, and print. At the very, very top, it contains classified information. This is what we use. What we have is they go through and check off 3 things. The client is most important to them. So when I'm out there, when our reps are out there, we would go to Jim over here, and we would get him involved in the process. If Jim is not checking off the top 3 things, if you're checking them off, not going to work. He, she has to check off the top 3 things that are most important to them. And then we give them back that information. Also in our customer marketing profile, a couple things that you might not know that are in here. We've been using these for quite a while. They're updated version. And I believe that closing happens on the first call. Closing doesn't happen, in my opinion, on the second call. It's in direct proportion to the amount of information you get on this call right here. You check off the top 3 things. On the inside, you have different things that we cover over a 6-month period of time. We have a 20-question customer profile. The 20th question, and this is not done in a customer needs analysis, but to get to know that customer over a period of time. Does your competition have better answers to the above questions than you have? And if they do, it's going to be really, really, really tough for you to get the money away from your competition. Some of you might be familiar with what we call the buyer's awareness cycle. Let me see a show of hands. Are you familiar with the buyer's awareness cycle? How do you go out and close annual contracts today? How do you do it? How do your people go out and close annual contracts? Package? What are they doing? It's called a buyer's awareness cycle. How many people woke up today in Orlando, Florida, and never thought about buying a Harley-Davidson motorcycle before in their life? What do you have, a city of 2 million people here? How many never thought about a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, woke up this morning and went down to their nearest Harley-Davidson dealership and bought a $25,000 motorcycle? Big fat zero. What do? They go through a process. They call it 4 stages of the buyer's awareness cycle. Our reps are loaded up with that information. So when the furniture store comes out there and says, you know what, guess what, I want to give you a 1-month campaign. Here's a 1-month deal. Our reps say no. Minimum is 4 months. 3.9 to be exact. By the time the switch goes off in somebody's head before they walk into their first showroom. So if you go out there and your reps are going out there selling a 1-month campaign, what are you doing? You're doing a disservice to that particular client. You're actually taking their money. There's at least 4 months that go by in a buyer's awareness cycle. So this is the process that we use here. Our reps go through it. On average, you have about 17 minutes on a closing call before the customer drifts off into Euclidean space and they check out. So if you're thinking about your long laundry list, your 20-page closing presentation, Paul brought up over here, I think something as simple as 3 pages long. Nail it. Come back, reintroduce yourself, what's happened over the last 72 hours. Step number 2 is review your previous meaning. When we go out with a presentation, there's a part here that has the objective, much like Paul Whalen talked about, the solution, objective, solution. We have 3 things, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to match them up. All we're doing on our closing presentation is telling them what they told us that was most important to them. If you're doing anything else, kind of question what you're doing out there. Okay? So we want to review our previous meaning, the 3 things that they checked off. This one is present your radio stations or anything that you're bundling up with your radio stations. A lot of our radio stations sell internet. One thing on internet, how many of you sell internet with your radio stations? Let me see a show of hands. For our radio stations, it's not an option to buy the internet. You buy the internet with the radio. There's no options there. So it's bundled up completely. If you give them an option to buy the internet, I don't know why you would do that. It's part of what you'd offer in your entire menu. So we take everything and put that together. We do not go over a long laundry list of features and benefits. We have really a 1-page. Why are they there? Why are they listening to you? What do they want to do? They want to know how you are going to solve their challenges, their issues, their problems, their opportunities. That's why you're there. Next step, present your creative idea. When our sales reps go out there, they carry 2 ideas with them, never one. If I go out there and shop at an automotive dealership today, and first of all, if there's no cars on the lot, what are the chances of me buying a car from that particular dealer? Seriously. Has anybody ever done that? Maybe you bought it online, different story, but a local car dealership? If they don't have the cars out there, you're not buying. And up at a car dealership, 80% of the people that get into a car on a test drive are going to be sold. When you're presenting radio, you and your reps take 2 creative ideas out there. You present one, you give them the explanation behind it. Here's the idea we came up with. I have 2. One's going to be creative, slice of life. The other one is going to be kind of a straight read, but they both work. You play the one, pause, and then you play the next one. And the question at the end is not what you typically hear from a sales rep. What do you think? What do you think? I don't care what they think. I know both campaigns are going to work. I want to know, which one do you think is going to do a better job of taking us from 110 cars a month to 130 cars a month based on the customer needs analysis that we did 3 days ago. And they're both going to work. And if I need to rotate them, I'll rotate them both. Present your creative. In my opinion, if you're not taking specs out, you're not taking spec campaigns out, you're not selling. And if your reps aren't taking ideas out, they're not selling. And if you're selling internet and you're not taking display ads out or whatever your creative is to show them, you're not selling. I have a market of 200,000 people in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. A little bit of self-ego-aggrandizement here for them. 200,000. They bill $4 million annually. I want you to think about that. 200,000 people, they bill $4 million annually selling local display advertisement. I want you to think about that for your market. And do you know how they sell? The exact same way you sell in radio. The only thing that changes is their spec campaigns when they go out. They're presenting display ads versus your 15, 30, or a 60-second commercial. Okay? Step number 5, present the schedule. We, in radio, still go back, I think, in at least the stations that I work with, I want a frequency of at least 3 to 4 on a weekly campaign or wherever I'm going to run my schedule. If we're going to nickel and dime this thing and you're going to take Las Vegas money, then you're going to run into the number one objection that we have in radio, especially in radio sales, which is, I tried it once and it didn't work. Avoid that. Please avoid that. Next step, step number 6 of a closing call. We overcome objections. And I know Pam Lantos and Steve Marriott are going to cover this in their part. What we do on overcoming objections is we isolate it to the very, very end. If you're in step 1 or you're at the beginning of your presentation and somebody comes out and says, look, you know what, I don't like your radio station. I listened to it over the weekend or 48 hours ago, and I don't like your radio station. If you start to overcome that, or your sales reps start to overcome that in the middle of the presentation, who has control? The client does. And then you're done. Remember, if there's one thing you take out of this particular part today, it's what? You have 17 minutes to keep them. And then they're gone. They drift off into Euclidean space. So we like to isolate those objections. Most of the objections that you get, for the most part, you're going to cover in your presentation. Okay? And then, of course, there is the end, which is confirming the agreement.
It's time for you to close me, Sean.
Not yet. Not till we okay our agreement, Margaret. Matter of fact, you know what? It's our non-disclosure agreement.
Turn around, Sean. Enjoy it while it lasts.
The very words I live by. Presentations, make them fun. Make them rise above the clutter. Thank you, Margaret Wood. I appreciate it.